Eyeball Bakers, today we are making a classic Austrian Sacher Torte. It's a lovely cake, it's a little bit classy, and it is perfect for the chocolate lovers in your life or for yourself. So the first thing we're going to do is melt a bowl of bittersweet chocolate. You want to use really good quality chocolate here because it is the star of the show in this cake. We want to make sure that it's really good. So once your chocolate is melted, just let it cool down there a little bit and we'll get to it in a few minutes. Our next step is to cream up our butter, which is at room temperature. And what I like to do when making cakes like this and you need room temperature butter is leave your butter out overnight. So it's like the perfect temperature. We're going to add in some sugar, and then on our mixer, we're going to cream it together until it's nice and light and fluffy. It takes a few minutes on like medium-high speed. So once your butter and sugar mixture is creamed and nice and light and fluffy, just like this, we slowly add in our egg yolks, one at a time until combined, then add in the next one. We have the egg yolks here, but the egg whites we're going to use in a few minutes also, so everything is getting used up. Okay, lovely. Once your eggs are in there, we're going to add in our vanilla extract. Let that mix in. And then lastly, drizzle in this lovely melted chocolate because it will have cooled down by now. Just make sure your machine is turned down and nice and slow when you're adding this in, otherwise you're going to end up with chocolate everywhere. Lovely, look at that. This is a really rich chocolatey cake. Okay, just give that a swirly around your bowl. Make sure it's all combined. Lovely. I'm going to pop that in this separate bowl because I need to go wash this and get it ready for our egg whites. Okay, next step are our egg whites. Now I've had these sitting out at room temperature because they whip up so much better. If you watch a lot of my videos, you'll know that I always do that with my egg whites. We're going to turn on the machine. Just going to whip them up for 2 minutes on like a medium. What this does is just loosens up the egg white, kind of breaks it up a little bit, and then it makes it easier to whip up later. After 2 minutes, just turn it up and let it get to soft peaks. At this point, that's when you add in your sugar. You don't add it in earlier because your egg whites won't have the structure to hold the sugar and it will just fall to the bottom and it will collapse. So once you get to soft peaks, just do a tablespoon at a time and slowly just stream it in as it whips. I know I sound like a broken record, but there's a method to my madness. And for best results, just do what I say. You know, we don't often whip up egg whites for cake, but there's a lovely lightness to this cake and it's airy and kind of bubbly and melt in your mouth. It's just really delicious. Once all your sugar is added in, I like to let it mix for another minute or so, just to make sure it gets nice and thick. And at the end, it should look like this. Look at that, beautiful stiff meringue, lovely. So now I'm going to bring back in my chocolate mixture. I'm going to take a little bit of my whipped meringue, just around a third of the mixture. And we are going to introduce the meringue to the chocolate mixture with my metal edge spoon. That is perfect for folding in egg whites because what it does with that thin edge is that it glides through the egg whites and it doesn't come in like a spatula and knock out all the air. The reason that we do this is when you're incorporating two things that are very different in texture, you want to introduce one into the other a little bit, fold it in, let that mixture loosen up, and then it will take the rest, which you always want to do a little bit first. Otherwise, it can be quite difficult to incorporate a whole pile in. You know this method of folding in. You go around the bowl, bring up your spoon, fold down the middle, go around, fold down the middle. This is an old French technique. It has worked for many, many decades. There we go, lovely. You see, I do still have some egg white here, but that's totally fine. I'm going to stop because the last thing I'm going to do is fold in my flour. So the rest of the egg white will get folded in when I've folded in all my flour. Now, I want you to know that this is a cake flour and not all-purpose flour. You can use all-purpose flour if you want, but cake flour is softer and it is really good for cake making. It gives you a lovely tender crumb. If you don't have cake flour in your country, that is totally fine. Head to biggerbolderbaking.com where you'll get this recipe and a link of how you can make your own cake flour. I'm going to add this in 2 batches to make it easier to incorporate. Lovely. When you're making this cake, you do need a nice big bowl. You can tell by looking at this batter, it's going to be a lovely cake. Okie dokie, once that flour is incorporated, stop your folding because we don't want to knock out that air that we created. I'm going to bring in my springform cake pan. This is 9 inches. It is buttered and lined, and in goes my cake mixture. It's quite a big cake, so you are going to want a springform pan. Get every last bit out of there. Lovely. With a spatula, just spread the cake out evenly as best you can. A little bit of extra steps to this cake, but believe me, it is well worth it. Flatten it out. Lovely. Last bit. Okay, my oven is preheated. Let's get it in there. Bake your cake at 350 degrees Fahrenheit, 180 degrees Celsius for roughly 50 to 55 minutes. You'll know when it's done because it'll be firm on top. So the next thing we want to do is make our apricot filling, and this is classic for a Sacher Torte. If you're not a big fan of apricot or don't have it, you can use any type of jam. You know, peach jam works well. I like apricot because it is the classic way that it's done, but also it's kind of like a neutral flavor. It really complements the chocolate. So here I have my jam, and here I have some dark rum. Now, all you have to do with these two ingredients is pop them into a pot, let them come to a simmer, and then simmer for around 2 minutes over medium heat. So we just want to reduce it a little bit and let that flavor concentrate. Then take it off, and once it's cooled down, it is ready to use. So lovely. You will notice that once this cake comes out of the oven, it can have some cracks on the top, and that's because it's kind of like meringue based, and that's very common. So don't worry about that. Your cake is not ruined. We're going to be covering it with a glaze, and it's going to be lovely at the end. Cake has cooled down, we have our apricot jam. Now it's time to assemble our cake. So we're going to torte our cake, which means just to cut it through the middle. Just one time, so it's nice and easy. So get down low. I have mine on a cake turntable, but you don't have to. It does make life easier. Go in with a serrated knife. So get down nice and low, as evenly as you can. Let's see how I did. Oh, not too bad. Oh, look at that. I'm pretty happy with that. That's pretty even. So now with our apricot jam, we are going to put 1/3 to 1/2 in the middle of the cake, just like that. Maybe a little bit more. We want it to be nice and moist. Lovely. That's it. On with our hat. We are going to take a pastry brush, and you can do this with like a spoon if you want to, just be careful. We're going to brush the cake just gently with the remaining jam. And we do this to add moisture and to add flavor. Now, like I said, like for instance, look at that. I'm going to show you something that just happened to me. This cake, a big kind of a flake just came off, but that's okay. And here's what we're going to do. We're just going to gently cover that bit with our jam and keep on going, because later we're going to be covering this in a glaze and you're not going to see any of that. Gently go over the cake. Lovely. The nature of this cake is to crumble like this. So glaze the top of the cake first and then go around the sides. Once you've covered your cake and your jam is all gone, we are going to pop this into the fridge and just let it get nice and cold and set a little bit before we put on our chocolate glaze. So while your cake is setting, we're going to make our glaze. So here I have a nice big bowl of bittersweet chocolate. Again, please use good quality chocolate. Lindt is actually a brand that I love to use, and I use that a lot. And here I have some butter. In we go. Now all you want to do is melt these two things together. Very simple. You can do it over a bain-marie if you want, or you can do what I do and bung it into the microwave. Just keep a close eye on it. Don't let it get too hot, and then check once it's melted, get it out of there. So after about 2 minutes or so, your chocolate will be melted, your butter will be also. Give it a little mix to combine and emulsify, just like this. So you can't see the butter, you can just see this beautiful runny chocolate glaze. Look at that, gorgeous. So I let the cake set for around 30 minutes. When it comes out of the fridge, you want to put it onto a baking tray with a rack on it, and I lined mine with parchment because I hate cleaning up chocolate. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to pour the glaze over the cake and let it just flow in its own direction and get it completely covered. So start in the middle and then pour it all the way around. It's going to set pretty quickly because the cake is cold after coming out of the fridge, like this. Beautiful. If you need to swirl around the cake to get it covered, do so. And I have an offset ready to go to get the sides. So any bits that you've missed, go with your offset and cover them up. Okay, this looks great. So all we have to do now is let this set. So I'm going to pop it back into the fridge, another 30 minutes, let the glaze firm up, and then it will be ready to write on and serve. Once your glaze has set, your cake is ready to serve. This is such a beautiful looking cake just as is, but if you want to go really big and bold, you can take some of the leftover glaze and write Sacher on the top. With or without it, it's going to be delicious. This cake does look really rich, but it's surprisingly light on the inside, especially with that apricot filling. Although originally from Austria, this cake is enjoyed around the world, and you can tell just by looking at it why. I always like to add a dollop of whipped cream on the side. What's lovely about this cake is that looking at it, you expect it to be very heavy, but when you bite into it, it's lovely and light, and you have the surprising flavour of the apricots and the chocolate, which I never would have thought to put together, but works really well in this cake. This cake does not have to be just for chocolate lovers. With that jam in the middle and the sweetness and the brightness of the fruit, it really balances the cake really well and makes it kind of lighter. And with softly whipped cream on the side, just gives it that extra little bump. You know, normally I can't get through a slice of chocolate cake, but this I'm going to have no trouble. There probably won't even be a crumb left. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Stick around because I've got tons more videos for you to check out. And I'll see you back here again next week, same time, same place with a brand new recipe.